Go ahead.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you guys to the 2019 Coach of the Year, Captain Eric Albarracin. You guys give him a hand.
Let me get my glasses so I can see better. There we go. That's better.
Coach, at what point did you realize you had something special with Henry? How did you guys hook up?
I first met him in actually 2003. I remember because I was living at the Olympic Training Center, and he was actually brought in as the 105-pound women's training partner. So he was a training partner for the women at the Olympic Training Center in 2003, and then they brought him and his brother in 2004 to live at the Olympic Training Center. So that's kind of when I first met him. He was about 103 pounds. He had blonde tips, spiky hair. It was like up to here. He looked like a little lion.
How influential are you with this cringe judo persona that he's playing right now?
I think it takes a lot of courage to become who you really are. So, you know, it's not, I think of it as Henry grew up different. Ever since he moved to the Olympic Training Center at a young age, or even when they saw potential in him at a young age, you kind of get given passes on certain things. So Henry I can tell you that Henry Cejudo grew up way more different than most other athletes because of him being a success at such a young age. It's kind of like, what's it like being Justin Bieber, being so famous at the age of 15, where you see things that most other people don't see. So Henry's unique because he was a famous athlete at a very young age where he didn't have to go through certain phases when you're a teenager, when you go to college. It was always kind of having fame at a very young age. So that's what you're just seeing. You're just seeing him coming into his own. And it's not like, it's really him, but it's not like, I would say it like this. And I don't know if he's gonna like it, but like when talking to girls, like most every girl that ever comes in, he's already in, you know, like people are gonna laugh when they're with you because they know who you are already. Like if he says a joke, even if it's corny, everybody in the room laughs, and that's what he hears all the time. Well, if you grab the guy next to me and have him say the same thing, nobody would say a word. So he's kind of grew up where whatever he says, people who put a smile on their face or they smile for him. So he's just kind of used to being able to say what he wants recently, and it's kind of it's normal for him because he's always been since he was a sophomore in high school. He's always been people have looked up to him. He's always been number one, really.
Do you know when he decided to kind of show that persona publicly, his real personality publicly?
Yeah, because I was in Brazil with him at the Pitbull Brothers when I showed him what Chael Sonnen said, and he had a big old rant about it, and I showed it to Henry, and he was just like, okay. And then I said, let's call him up. Let's call up Chael. Let's get it. Why don't you, if you're gonna get advice, get it from an expert. And we called him up, and they ended up speaking. He ended up going on his show when he went to Australia. Did like 30 minutes with him. So, you know, Chael's been a big influence in Henry as far as letting himself, as far as him becoming himself.
When was that?
Well, this was before he beat Demetrius. Before he beat Demetrius, because we were doing an interview on Canal Combate in Brazil with Anahiza, and I remember showing him the video down there, and that's when I said, let's call him up. Let's start get some advice from him. So that's what we did.
When you have a high-level grappler like Henry, what is the process to not only develop their striking, but also make it second nature so they do use the full weapons and don't just rely on the grappling?
Well, when you have a high-level grappler, it also becomes on their type of personality. He could have went the complete other way like a Ben Askren or a John Fitz and just take you down and smother you. But like Henry said, he's always been an entertainer. He likes to put on a show. And that's what you're seeing now. And that's why he's going out and knocking people out in 32 seconds. So he likes to put on a show before and after now. So that's it's part of Henry Cejudo now.
Okay. Can you kind of tell us a little bit actually about yourself? Like, how did you get into MMA coaching? And I know you have a giant resume of the top level guys you worked with. Can you kind of brag a bit about who you worked with?
Yeah, so I was in the military. I was the officer in charge of modern Army combatives, and that was kind of like my first introduction to hand-to-hand combat. Eventually became the officer in charge of hand-to-hand combat or modern Army combatives. And when I got out of the military, fortunately, my first fighter was Minotauro Nogueira, in which he had Team Nogueira, in which we had Anderson Silva, we had Junior Dos Santos, and we had Rafael Feijão. So I kind of got thrown into the fire, full immersion. I moved to Brazil, learned how to speak Portuguese. And one of the big things, one of the two big important people on that team at Team Nogueira in the time, which is 2011, were these two young brothers called the Pitbull brothers, Tricky Pitbull, Patricio Pitbull. And I always knew those guys were going to be good. And Patricio finally became my first world champion. And he's kind of built like Henry Cejudo, short, compact. And as he became very good in wrestling, Patricio Pitbull, I started seeing how he was transitioning his striking into his wrestling. And I called up Henry. This is even before Henry was in the UFC. I said, you need to come down here and start training with the Pitbull brothers, because I think Patricio Pitbull's style is perfect for you. And eventually he finally came down. I believe it was before we fought Wilson Hayes. So once we did a training camp in Brazil at the Pitbull brothers, is when he kind of made that change. And it was a big change. So, you know, one of the big things is that Patricio Pitbull did his camp with us for Michael Chandler, which he just became double or champ in Bellator. He beat the greatest lightweight of all time in Michael Chandler. And the great part about that is that Henry and him trained together this whole camp, and Henry got to witness it beforehand. So Henry feels motivation from watching Patricio Pitbull accomplish what he's going to accomplish on June 8th. So that was a big thing, is getting these two champions together, lions training with lions, iron sharpening iron.